right. Well, good. I'm glad that a few of you got that done. As I mentioned last time, having a clear family mission statement is key to parenting effectively through the different challenges, setbacks, and unique phases of life. It helps keep you on track. And we looked last week at a man by the name of Eli. He did not finish the job well with his sons. And the Bible says that Eli was very old and heard that all that his sons did unto Israel, how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle. Going on, verse 13 of chapter 3, his sons made themselves vile, and he restrained them not, the Bible says. And I was talking with, I think, Lloyd last week. He made a great point. Eli is called out in the Bible as addressing his sons. He rebukes them, he addresses their sin, he challenges them, and yet that was not enough. And it also was, it did not let him off the hook as a parent. The Bible does not say in 1 Samuel 3:13 that Eli didn't talk to his sons. He did talk to his sons. It says in 1 Samuel 3:13, he restrained them not. And I thought that was a great point. As Lloyd Easop and I were talking last week, we parents need to talk, we need to challenge, but we also need to put our foot down as to what we allow in our homes. And of course, what Eli was allowing to go on in his presence was complete debauchery. Yes, he did challenge them verbally. That's good. You got to do that. But there's another expectation. God's expectation of Eli was for him to actually restrain them. Not exactly politically correct parenting, but I believe it is biblically correct. And then Samuel, of course, the Bible says in 1 Samuel 8:5 that the people said, "Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Make us a king like all of the nations." So last week we talked about the fact that parenting is hard. Again, we're reviewing. Samuel, a couple more came in. Are we out? Grab Joel's and just go make copies if you could. Sorry about that. And Rachel can help too. I thought I would have enough, but all right. So parenting is hard, but persistent, consistent, loving discipline is essential to not only effectively navigating the child-rearing years, but to producing godly young men and women for God's glory. And it's not just enough to talk to them. We're going to do a whole session on communication as a family, communicating with your kids, and the importance of talking things through. That's great. But last week's session, which we're reviewing tonight, is also about restraining and just the disciplining that takes place. So we talked a bit about discipline. I'm going to skip through here. We talked about Eli, we talked about Samuel, David, Solomon, Jehoiada the priest. If you're taking notes, that's Jehoiada, Jehoiada the priest, and then Manoah and his wife, Samson's parents. All of them had a challenge with their parenting, and that's not because they were terrible people. It's because parenting is challenging. Parenting is difficult. And we asked this question last week: if there's one book in the Bible that has the most to do to parenting, what would it be? Proverbs, the Proverbs. I'm not going to reread all of those, but tremendous Proverbs there. They're in your notes. You can read them on your own time. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is a heaviness of his mother. But the sub-theme of parenting in Proverbs is focused on, what is it again? Discipline. Good old-fashioned discipline, correction. You could even say, in modern terms, again, politically incorrect terms, the good old paddling or whatever. As I mentioned last time, the Bible is not for abuse, child abuse, or any kind of abuse. But I believe that people have taken godly, spirit-led, parental discipline and thrown it in the abuse category, and that is unfortunate. We looked at all of the verses in Proverbs 13:24, He that spareth the rod hateth the son, but he that loveth him chasteneth betimes. Proverbs 19:18. Chasten thy son while there is hope. Let not thy soul spare for his crying. 22:15. Foolishness has bound the heart of the child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. And on and on. 23:13, 29:15, 29:17. Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. You can't read those verses and come away with anything other than, if you're going to be literal, the Bible does teach that we should, as parents, discipline our kids, and specifically, this is talking about the rod of correction. As some would say, let's see, the rod of wisdom applied to the seed of knowledge, or how's that go? Something like that. All right. Is Proverbs outdated? No, it is not. The New Testament backs up this philosophy in Hebrews 12 when it talks about how God deals with us, that He chastens us as sons and daughters. And He talks about how it is not pleasant, but is rather grievous. It's not something we like to go through. He uses the word scourging in verse 6, Hebrews 12:6, for whom the Lord loveth, He chasteneth and scourgeth every son. And all the way through that passage, God is dealing with us like a father, and that's the analogy that He refers to in verse 9. Furthermore, we have had fathers of the flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? He's saying, look, just like your fathers on earth disciplined you, so I, as your spiritual father, will chasten you, even scourge you. God expects us to discipline our children in the same way that He, the Heavenly Father, chastens us. A couple things I want to review real quick. Let's see. Why are we unwilling to practice biblical discipline in our homes today? The first blank was fear. Fear of men, fear of interference, fear of what people will say or think, all kinds of fear. Soft-heartedness, so-called, is the second one. Soft-heartedness, so-called. You might think you have a softer heart than God, but you don't. He loves your kid more than you do. Then we had parental guilt. We struggle with our own guilt because we're sinners and we're disciplining because of our son and daughter's sin. Misunderstanding concerning what constitutes abuse. I already mentioned that one. And then short-sightedness. I want my kid to like me. I love my children, so I just can't do this. All right, let's keep moving. If we are to administer discipline, it should be done, first of all, prayerfully. Administer discipline prayerfully. Administer discipline carefully. We talked about these in more detail last time. Administer discipline consistently. If you're not consistent, you are going to, that creates bitterness in your kids. Administer discipline lovingly, not when you're angry, not impulsively, okay, lovingly. Whom the Lord loveth, He chasteneth. And then administer discipline biblically. And then I had one last thing that I gave to the kids last time, and I'm going to dismiss the kids after this. So kids, listen up. This is for you. How should children respond to parental discipline? Does anybody remember from last week? Any kids remember who's not looking at notes? How should children respond to parental discipline? No takers? All right. Sam was coming around with some more notes if people need that. Children should respond thankfully. Yes, thankfully. Thanking God that your parents care enough about you to discipline you. They love you, and they are going to faithfully correct you as God directs. I think that for many kids who don't have parents who are willing to discipline them, deep down in their heart of hearts, they wish they did. I had a neighbor boy who lived just down the road. His parents did not discipline biblically. He could do whatever he wanted to do with no consequences, other than they might just yell at him. They would yell at him if they didn't like something. But we got disciplined. Man, let me tell you, we got paddled and everything else. And he envied our family. He would oftentimes want to talk about my mom and dad, and questions about mom and dad, and how does it work in our family, and what do you get in trouble for? And he was just fascinated by it. And I tell you, he ended up really destroying his life, and his parents pretty much just sat by and watched. He's a big boy, he can raise himself. That's the philosophy today that you hear. Kids know what they want, kids know what they need. They tell you when to feed them and what to do and all that. If kids know it all, why did God give them to you as parents? No, God told us as parents we need to be actively involved in their lives. That includes correction and discipline. So teenagers, young people, be thankful that your parents are willing to stick their neck out for you and discipline you. Second one was submission. Don't fight your parents, especially on disciplinary measures, correction. Don't fight them. Humbly submit to the disciplinary process. Humble yourself, submit to the process, accept the consequences, and embrace your parents' forgiveness. In our household, we have certain parameters. When you get in trouble and you're facing the consequences, there's a certain way you're supposed to act that's acceptable, and a certain way that's not acceptable. And we go through things very biblically. We take time for prayer. We take time for discussion. We take time for questions. We take time for whatever we need to take time for to make sure that there's clarity. But ultimately, each of the kids in our home has to submit themselves to that process. And in doing so, you're ultimately, young people, you're submitting to God. You're submitting to the Lord Jesus through your parents. It's a good thing. And I told you last week, I think I said 17. I might have been 16. But I think last week I said I was 17. I may have been 17. It could have been 16. But that was the last time I got physically paddled by my dad. I told you the story last week. And if you weren't there, you got to go back and listen to it. It's online. I am not, to this day, when I think of that, I don't think of how could my dad have done that to me. I actually look back on that day and where I was at spiritually and the mess I had found myself in. I'm grateful that my dad was willing to go toe-to-toe with me and bring some stern correction and some discipline when I definitely had it coming. I'm not saying that necessarily someone should receive that at 16 or 17. I'm just saying that I did. I'm not bitter about it. I'm grateful for my parents and for what God did through them. Then I had the third thing was respect. How should children respond to parental discipline? Respect your parents. Honor your father and your mother by giving the respect that God demands. Oftentimes in the disciplinary process, as mom and dad are handing out the consequences, no more TV, or give me your phone, you're going to lose your phone, or no video games for 3 days, or whatever it is, or you're grounded, or maybe it is a paddling, whatever the case may be. A lot of times teenagers and young people learn to use this mouth to just go toe-to-toe with mom, toe-to-toe with dad, saying all kinds of things, disrespectful things. And what you're doing in that moment is it's not honoring God, and you're not helping yourself out. You don't need in that moment to become a lawyer in a court. You need in that moment to respect and honor your mom and dad, give them the respect that God demands. Remember, honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Disrespect during the disciplinary process is disgraceful. It is shameful. I've been over at people's houses. I'm not talking about here. I honestly have no thoughts in my mind of anyone here. But in evangelism, we traveled to a lot of places, stayed in a lot of houses, and sometimes you would hear like a war going on in the bedroom because the kid is bouncing off the walls. Hey, young person, if your parents are wanting to help correct you, be thankful, submit, and be respectful, and go through that process, and God will be honored. All right, that was the review. Now we're going to get into the parenting through the years chart. But before we do that, I'm going to dismiss the teens and all of the kids that would be Patch Club age. And don't go to the fellowship hall. Go out, follow John Jr. and Michael out the main doors to the overhang, and you will get your instruction from Pastor CJ there. And thank you to Pastor CJ and John and the others who they took an audible from me today at 4 o'clock. I called them up. I'm like, hey, guys, what do you say? And they were flexible. You know, John Jr. is an intern here this year, so you got to throw a curveball or two in the summer. You can't have it all laid out in the chart. He wouldn't be getting the real experience. So thank you to Pastor CJ and the others that are helping. All right, I want to get into the chart, but before we do, any questions about what we've talked about so far, about correction, discipline? While you're thinking of questions, I want to just go ahead and say a question or two has come in since last time. And one question is, what about with special needs children? And that is a great question. I think it is so important that correction be able to be understood and received. And so with special needs children, there are no doubt unique situations there where a certain corrective measure is just not going to be understood. And so therefore, you're going to need to maybe take a different approach than another parent might with a different child. So I would say that's definitely a great question, and I don't have all the answers on that. I do know that even with special needs children, there still needs to be corrective measures. But they may be very different and different ages and so forth. And if you have questions or thoughts on that, definitely let me know. But that is certainly a legitimate consideration. On that point, beyond special needs, I would just say even with children who are not special needs, they still mature and develop in such different at such different speeds. And some kids get things right away, and other kids, they're not there yet. And so we do need to tailor our parenting to the child that God has given us. We have 5 children, and we have found they're all totally different. And we have, in a sense, parented them the same, but in another sense, we parented them all very differently. Because there are certain things that have worked at a certain age for certain ones that have not worked at that age for others. And so you do need to be able, with the Lord's help, to tailor the corrective measures for each child as they're growing. Thoughts or questions of your own, or thoughts or questions on that? Thoughts, or comments, or questions on anything related to discipline and correction so far? I know this is a tough one to talk about, but I sent the kids out, so if you have a question or two, or I would also say this, since this is a more personal and difficult thing to talk about, I am happy to talk with you privately if you want to talk about specific things. There are, I'm sure, all sorts of situations and scenarios that could be brought up. I would definitely say this, though, on this matter, don't think that your sweet little 1-year-old, 2-year-old has no clue. No, they begin to be willful. They begin to assert themselves. They begin to train you at a very early age. And you've got to be a parent who is willing to stand on principle even when the kid is young. I'm not saying a full paddling. I'm just saying there needs to be a parent who is asserting themselves and not allowing yourself to be led by that child, because the child who asserts their leadership at 1.5, 2 years old will continue to assert their leadership all the way through. And that does not just change. It's part of the sin nature. Thoughts or questions before we move on to the next section? Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
Well, when kids are little, one of the things we can, I forget which book it was, we read it in, but that kids, by the time they're 1 year old, even if they can't talk, they understand pretty much everything you're saying to them by the time they're one. So that was helpful for us when they were, that realization helps you be a little more, hold them a little more accountable.
Yeah, that's great. Something that we did, you guys are all familiar with Elmer's glue sticks, those little flexible rubber things. Those weren't just for arts and crafts at our house. You really can't hurt somebody with an Elmer's glue stick. It's almost like a pool noodle, but no, the pool noodle is definitely nicer. The Elmer's glue stick, we felt it was a great corrective tool for when they were very little. It just stings the skin a little bit, doesn't leave a mark, doesn't bruise. I remember I was a college student staying at someone's house, and they had this glue stick. And the kids would get out of the line, and mom would say, all right, you're going to see Mr. Elmer. And that meant go to the bedroom, we're going to have a session. And they'd come out crying, and I watched this happen throughout the whole week. I was staying with this couple for a week. And I said, that glue stick, I'm telling you what, I'm sorry, but my parents, it was a piece of wood. It was a 2x4 cut down the middle. You know, man, we had it. And she said, whoa, don't you be knocking on my glue stick. This gets the job done. I said, I'm sorry, I don't think so. She said, bend over. I'm staying in this lady's house with 4 other college guys for a week. And she's like, what, you're going to talk trash about my glue stick? Bend over. And I said, and the guys are all looking at me, well, John, what do you? I was like, okay. So I bent over in the kitchen. I grab onto that, the counter, bend over. She starts whapping me on the backside with that glue stick. That hurt so bad. I was like, okay, we're good. Okay, you win. Okay. Hey, it got my attention, that's for sure. So again, the point is to have corrective discipline that you can be consistent with. You're not going to injure anybody, but it is going to send the message. Final questions? It was yes, Renee.
We were in a family seminar at fathers who wrote down your children to wrath, and he said, we always think about it, don't yell or scream at your kid, make them mad, but he said if you deny discipline for them, they actually will become more angry.
Yeah.
So you're not giving them what they need, and we'll notice that, without them, when she's getting upset more easily. It's actually our fault, that's on ours, that she's needing that. So,
That's a great point.
yeah.
Sometimes, the child is just not going to respond to anything else, but they need those corrective measures. And if it's not happening, it is on the parent. It's our fault. If my kid is just going crazy, going ballistic, I can't just say, oh, my kid is going ballistic. I probably need to engage as a parent. Good point. Anyone else? Well, again, if you have more questions, comments on that, I'm happy to talk to you more at another time. Let's talk about this. Oh, yes, please.
That concept is so interesting. If you think, why would a child get more angry when they're not happy? I think that's absolutely true when you think about science.
I think because of the way we're hardwired by God, we are looking for the boundaries. We're looking for who's the authority. We're trying to establish parameters. And so we talk about kids going ballistic and bouncing off the walls. They're bouncing around trying to find who's in charge, what are the boundaries, what can I do, how far. And that's also, you see kids, you'll say, okay, don't touch that. And they're like, okay, don't do that. And they can do that all day. And they want to see, what are you going to do? And if you don't do anything, that the kid really loses respect for the parent in that spot, because they recognize that your word doesn't mean anything. My word actually is winning, and I'm in charge here. But kids that know where they belong and the sphere in which they can operate, they have more security. Yeah, it's good. Let's look at the chart. Parenting through the years. Now, the 777 breakdown, you'll see that online. You'll see that in books. You'll see it various places. Everything in the chart is just my own thoughts, my own experience. I'm not getting it from a book or anything, but the 777 breakdown, that's out there. I just want to say, don't take these sevens as verbatim. Like, this is what we do from 0 to 7. This is what we do from 8 to 14. This is what we do from 15 to 21 and beyond. No. This is just a very general range. So let's look first at the parenting styles. I put on there commander, coach, and counselor. Commander, coach, and counselor. Let's talk about this for a minute. And do we have the spectrum? Did that come through? I had 2 new slides, but they may not have come through. They are? Can we put that up there? There it is. Look at that. All right, so I tried to have a gradient. I think you can see it, sort of, kind of. And I did not put any lines. There's no lines, and that's on purpose, because I want to give you the idea there's a blend, there's a bleed over, and sometimes in the 8 to 14 years, the commander better come out. Sometimes in the counselor, 15 to 21 years, the commander has to come out and say, as for me and my house, we're not doing this. We're serving the Lord, okay? So it's not like you're only a commander at the beginning. You're only a counselor at the end. No. There's a carryover, okay? But in general, you are commanding, you're more assertive in the beginning. And I always laugh when I'm out and about and I see a parent reasoning with their 1.5-year-old. Okay, well, why don't we do this? No? Oh, boy. Okay, well, we're going to leave the sprinkler pad. What do you call it? The splash pad. We're going to leave the splash pad. Is that okay? Oh, it's not okay. Okay. Mommy's got to go to work. The kid doesn't understand work. Doesn't understand anything. You have to come to the table as the parent in the room, the one who is in charge. So the more of the commander mentality is, this is what we're doing today. We're going to the splash pad. We're going till this time. We're leaving. We're going to grandma's. I got to go to work. And you don't need to have all these conversations with your kids. Now, communicate with your kids, yes. Talk to your kids. Hear their thoughts and so forth. But as far as who is leading with the most assertiveness, that needs to be the parent. What we get into trouble with is when the parenting style stays commander the entire way through, where dad can rule with an iron fist, very militaristic, and never relinquishes that, never has any phasing out, just my way or the highway, that is it. No teaching. Commanders don't teach, they command. You know, the general says, charge! Can we talk about this? Like, what's the strategy? Charge means charge, go! Okay, that's okay when they're really little. It's so funny to me. We're halfway to Iowa. We've been talking about it for weeks. And then Erica, are we going to Grandma's? Yes, we've been going to Grandma's for a long time, but she knows when you're in the car a super long time, it's Grandma's. Our kids, maybe this is really bad parenting. I'm just going to put it out there. My wife and I, pray for us. We have capitulated. Our kids will tell you how long a drive is in terms of how many movies. Oh, that's a short movie. You only get half the movie done. Oh, no, that's a short drive. That's a long drive. We got 2 movies. That's a 2-movie drive. Grandma's house is like a 4-movie drive. Now, we don't let them watch movies the entire time, but it would be about 4 movies if we did. And we may have on a time or 2. We try to talk and other things. Okay, now I'm telling on myself. But I don't ask the kids, do we all want to go to Grandma's? Somebody was telling me, I don't know who it was. I think somebody was telling me after last week that, oh, was it you? Okay, you met somebody and they had ended their trip overseas because the kid, what was it?
Little Johnny wasn't happy in like Romania where they were visiting the home country. And so she said, we came back early and I changed airline tickets
Yeah, mind-blowing.
And I told Arlene, I said, my dad would have.
You're over in Romania visiting the home country, and Junior wants to go home. 6-year-old kid wants to go home. They have to buy new tickets, change everything, come home, because Junior didn't want to be in Romania. Okay, who's in charge here? The parents should be in charge, and this is where the commander comes out. And I don't have a problem using that term, at least for this season. I think sometimes we overreact to the militaristic parent. We've overreacted right to the other side, where parents don't give commands. Parents don't lay anything down. And remember, pendulum swinging is not good. We don't want to be over here where we're some dictator in the home. We don't want to be over here where everything goes and we will not say a command. We will only give suggestions. That's not going to work. So the beginning years commander, this should begin to start transitioning into more of a coach. A coach is teaching. A coach is instructing. A coach is correcting. John, get your elbow in. Okay, elbow in. Now follow through. There you go. The coach is going to help you with the techniques and so forth and why you're doing what you're doing. I want you to have a backspin on the ball. Why do I need a backspin on the ball? Because you're going to have a softer touch, and if it hits the dead spot of the rim, it'll drop right in. Oh, okay, now I get it. That's a coach. He's teaching. Whereas in the commander years, it's just do this. I can't explain it to you. You're 2. I can't explain it to you, but I'm going to give you more explanation as you get older. All right, so coach, we're doing more teaching, not just commanding. And as we're moving through the high school years and the college years, and as long as the kids are staying at home, that could be, 20s, whatever, we are trying to see them mature and blossom and grow so that we are able to do more counseling, less coaching, and less commanding. There is still commanding, even in the 15 to 21 years. There is still coaching. But if we're doing our job right as parents, boy, I sure hope that we're able to sit down with our kids. They're 18 years old. So you've got the choice of you're going to Washtenaw Community College or Pensacola, or Uncle Frank has that job. You get to go straight to work with Uncle Frank. That's on the table. Or you could go on the missions trip to China. That's going to be 6 months. Let's talk this out. That's where you want to be, where you can guide and give some encouragement as opposed to, you're doing this. When I was an evangelist, I would always have team members traveling that were college age, and oftentimes they would have multiple options. I could travel with John Barber and the evangelistic team. I could go home and intern at my church. I can go on a missions trip to Africa, or I can go work a job and make money for all of this stuff. That's important too. And so a lot of them had no capacity to work their way through that. And I would sit and talk to them, and they're looking for me to tell them what's God's will. I'm not going to do that. Have you talked to your parents? Yeah, my parents, they're not telling me anything. Well, good. Good for them. They are, hopefully they're still engaged in your life, right? But they're not going to just tell you. You're not going to get a thus saith the Lord, and if you do, it might be at that point be because someone's overstepping. Maybe the pastor says, you need to be here with me. Well, maybe I do, but maybe not. Let's get all the counselors involved. And the multitude of counselors, their safety. Let's get the parents involved. But that's where we want to, Lord willing, be. A couple of notes. There is overlap between all 3 styles. I talked about that. The age ranges are not absolute. Parents are able to move through styles as their child matures, but be warned, if your child's not maturing, you may not move through these styles as well. And if you don't do your job early on, you may find that you would like to be able to let them spread their wings more and take flight, but maybe they are not spiritually mature, they're not emotionally mature, and so you're having to be more hands-on for longer. So anyway, that's why we want to really be engaged from the cradle so that we can move them through these maturity phases. And then parents may excel in one style and struggle in another depending on their strengths. Now, this one I want to talk about. You've got some parents where, I'm just thinking of the dad. The dad, maybe he's a military guy, and so the commander years, that is just bread and butter. Number one, it's 0 to 7. They're not back talking dad, the military man from 0 to 7. And some of these dads, and moms too, for that matter, excel. The commander is their personality. It's what they're good at. And so from 0 to 7, they are the model family in the church, period. In evangelism, there's a pastor, and I preached with him a couple of different times. And I remember one time, it's Sunday night after church, we're talking right down here, and I'm standing here. I remember the whole thing because it jarred me. I'm talking here, and he's talking right here. And we talked forever. And there's just people just all over in pockets, just fellowshipping. And when we got done, he shook my hand. "Oh, brother, we'll see you tomorrow night." And then he put his hand up like this. And then he went, and it was 10 times louder than that. And then he turned around, and he started walking with his Bible. And I'm telling you, his kids came from every corner. They dropped in mid-sentence. And I'm standing here like, whoa, what is happening? And he went out, never broke stride, and his kids followed in right behind, and out they went. I was like, man, that guy's got it going on. Okay, maybe let's check back in a couple of years. Let's check back and see how does it go 8 to 14, 15 to 21, and are we going to be able to transition to what our kids need in each stage? The commander sometimes doesn't want to sit down with a teenager and talk through emotional stuff. The commander just wants to go, move, get in line, now. And that's when you start to struggle. You as a parent cannot just depend upon your personality. If you're the personality of the commander, great. You're going to have a great little season. But then you got to get on your knees and say, God, help me to learn how to teach, to learn how to coach, to learn how to communicate. God, help me to learn how to entrust my child with more and more responsibility, to begin to counsel them and come alongside them and help really set them up for success. You may not be the commander type. You may be the absolute furthest thing from it and do really well on the counseling stage. But you may struggle in the commanding stage of laying down the boundaries, getting things started where it needs to be as a parent, and so forth. I talked this morning about my boss, Randy. I think I mentioned he was also my coach. And he was my friend, and he was a church member, and he meant so much to me. He was a mentor in my life that had such a huge impact because I was with him from ages 14 to about 18. So that's a key part of my life. He was a great coach. He knew how to, in one moment, he could cut you right down to size. And you're just, oh. And he could just build you right back up. And he knew how to praise, but he never flattered. If he ever gave praise, you knew it was the real deal. He could praise you and build you up. And if you ever did something right, he always had a whistle in our basketball practice. And if something right happened, he'd blow the whistle and stop and just praise the guy. Look what just happened. Look at what just happened. This is what we're here for. This is it. He wasn't the coach that just blew the whistle when it went wrong. That happened too. Oh, man. You did the wrong thing. Blow the whistle. Stop it all. Boom. He'd nail you in front of the whole crew. But I knew he loved me. I knew he loved me. And I wanted to do everything I could for that man. When I was working for him, I wanted to work my legs off. When I was playing basketball for him, I wanted to be the best basketball player ever, because you never know, but coach might sing my praises in front of the guy. I don't know. It just, he knew how to build you up, and I needed that. But he was a man. I'd say my mentor, Randy, he knew how to be a commander. He knew how to be a coach, and he knew how to be a counselor. And as parents, we've got to seek the Lord. Help me to be able to parent beyond my personality and beyond my strengths. Otherwise, we will struggle on the whole parenting spectrum, shall we say. There are phases, and I'm still in it. Pray for me. We are in the middle of it. Lloyd and I were talking about it last week. We've got the little ones, we've got the middle age, we got the older ones. It's like, whoa, Lord, help! But you've got to be able to adapt to each season and trust the Lord for help in that. Okay, I said a lot on that. Any questions on that so far? The parenting styles, the commander, coach, counselor. Yes, sir.
Just a phrase, maybe you've seen it, it's parenting rules plus regulations minus relationships equals rebellion.
That's great.
And the rules and regulations, commander and coach, if you leave out the counselor minus relationship,
Yeah.
you're going to get rebellion.
There it is. Rules plus regulations minus relationship equals rebellion. That's probably a pretty true formula. Yeah. Anyone else? Thoughts on this? Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
In the commander stage, when you're making your decisions and direction, giving direction to kids, are you still explaining reasoning or explaining concepts to them, or?
A little bit. Whatever I think they can understand. Like, we're going to church. Well, I don't explain anything when they're in the little what do you call it? Or the thing that the car seat thing. Okay, it's been a while actually. I don't explain nothing. We're just coming. And then they get to be 2 and 3. Why do we do this? And there is some explanation, definitely. But when they get to be 15, Dad, I'm tired. Not that Sam, I'm not calling out Sam, okay, but, or Aaron is 13. Dad, why are we doing this and this and this? And other churches do it this way. We will sit down and talk about that. We'll do a whole family devotion on that. There have been several times where my older two have come to me with excellent talks, or questions, excellent questions. And I'll extemporaneously dive into it and then be like, you know what, we're going to revisit that in family devotion. Stay tuned. We'll come back to that tomorrow night. We'll do the whole devotion on it. Well, what is that? That is teaching and the counselor now coming in. I oftentimes will bring kids with me one-on-one if I'm going to something that I can take a kid with. That allows us to have that one-on-one as well. Yeah, other questions on that? Yes, sir.
So do you let the children in as they develop into this spectrum? Like, okay, I'm moving into more of a coaching, I'm moving into more of a counselor, or do you kind of hold that back?
I don't know that I've actually said that to the kids, but I am trying to conscientiously do it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm following my dad's example on this. And I believe he had a biblical framework. But my dad, I think he did this well. He definitely moved from commander to coach to counselor. He never lost the commander, right? He was always in charge. He never lost the coach. But today, he is my chief counselor. You know, I can call him anytime, my mom as well, and I do. And we talk about this, that, and he will not say, you need to do it this way. It is, well, John, here's in my experience, and here's the Bible says, and blah, 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 blah. Very much a counselor. But that started in my teen years and college years for sure. I don't know that he ever told me either, but I just noticed the shift. Yeah, good question. And good to have you, Kelvin and Abby. Welcome. Anything else on these parenting styles? And I guess you could call them other things. I like alliteration. You guys know me. So commander, coach, and counselor kind of works, but you get the concept. All right, let's put a couple more things on the screen. Let's put in all of the pitfalls. So can you click through however many that is? It's like 12 of them or something? Yeah, there you go. Ending with caving in. Let's start with the 0 to 7 pitfalls. Overscheduling, isolation, fear-driven tunnel vision. What are we talking about there? Well, I think I think parents in the 0 to 7 years really need to find their security in the Lord, because insecurity at this point can just plague you. There's Facebook, and you're comparing yourself to everybody else's parenting and everybody else's kids, and you're reading too many books on parenting. You're hearing too much of, you got to do this, you have to do that. And before they're 2, they have to have hit this milestone. And make sure you start the music lessons when they're this. And if you want them to have perfect pitch, and you have to sing an A440 to them in the crib. And it's got to be always there. They're going to not get their perfect pitch. And so we just overthink it and overschedule it. And we're taking everybody else's directives. Be secure in the Lord. Be secure in your family's mission. That's where the mission comes in. Talk to your spouse, and the 2 of you work on that schedule and make sure the schedule works for you. You're not a slave to your schedule. I always feel bad when young families end up being so rigid to their schedule that they basically can't live life anymore. They can't see people. They can't do stuff. They're just kind of checked out because this schedule must always dominate. I think it's good to be scheduled, and my wife was a big scheduler, but I will also say we were raising our little ones on the road. We had 3 little ones in a trailer on the road. You can only be so scheduled with that. And one time we drove in, I remember where it was, Central City, Nebraska. We got in on a Saturday night, and we pulled into our spot. We always park at that church. And my wife began to get the bath water ready. It's Saturday night. We got 3 little kids. And actually, it was 2 little kids at that time. And the pastor says, "Hey, man, I'm so glad you're here. The boys are going to the football game. I got the tickets. And the girls are going shopping." And I laughed. I said, that was a good one. And I looked at him. He had the tickets in his hand. And his wife was in the car. I thought, oh boy. So I go knock on the door. "Rebecca, stop the bath water. They've got plans." And well, what happened? The schedule went out the window. And my kids all survived. They all lived to tell the tale. My wife went shopping on Saturday night with the ladies in the church. I went to the football game, got back by midnight, preached something in Sunday school the next morning, and we made it. I wouldn't think that's the best, but you know what? Don't let the schedule dominate. All right, you get it. Isolation goes along with it. Sometimes if you're overscheduled and you're if you let insecurity reign, you end up pulling out of church, of friends, social life. It all just begins to, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the schedule anymore. And so you think, when's the last time I had an adult conversation? I don't know. All I've heard is gibberish around the crib and nursery rhymes. You've got to have adult conversations. You cannot find yourself isolated for 7 years or whatever it is. So don't let that happen. Fear-driven. This kind of goes along with the insecurity, where when they're really little, of course, we're so afraid of our kid choking on something and dying, or messing something up, or missing out, or I'm not going to do it right. Faith is how you live the Christian life, and faith is how you parent. And parenting by faith means you don't have to have everything figured out. You're going to do the best you can as a good steward, but you're going to trust the Lord. And if you're not able to sleep at night because all the fears of what could happen, is my kid choking, this and this, just learn and focus on giving those things back to the Lord. We have given our kids to Him. They are in His hands. It's a miracle that any of our kids survives adolescence. The Lord is good. Tunnel vision. Tunnel vision goes along with all of this. It's just in this season, a lot of times, all people can see is this season. You can't see ministry. You can't see extended family. You can't see even maybe work can struggle. And work needs to be balanced. It definitely does. But the family mission can sometimes go by the wayside because everything is just so tunnel vision. I know there's way more pitfalls than that. These are just some that I think in our neck of the woods, what I see more often. In other areas, you've got people who neglect and abandon. That's not typically what I deal with in our church and in our ministry. We're not dealing with the neglect and abandonment side so much. We're dealing with more of the side of maybe overprotection. Then in the next column, you've got delegated parenting, absence, overcompensation, and comparison. And again, so much more could be said on these, and more pitfalls could be put in. But when you've got them in elementary school and all the different programs and so much is going on, a lot of stuff gets farmed out. You've got teachers, you've got coaches. I mentioned this last week, so I know I'm reviewing still. But you as a parent need to be more engaged in these early years than ever, really. You cannot delegate your parenting. As I mentioned last time, we don't delegate parenting. We may delegate some things to a coach or to a trainer or to a music teacher or a school teacher, but absence cannot be there. And overcompensation and comparison. I think this still gets into the insecurity. Sometimes in this 8 to 14 years, we are pendulum swinging from our own experiences. I didn't like how this happened in my life. I didn't like how that happened. I'm going to overcompensate. Fear-driven goes along with overcompensation, and we can smother a situation as opposed to walking by faith, trusting God, staying away from the insecurity, and just finding our dependence on Him. Comparison, again, that's any stage, but beware of comparison. My wife, you may notice my wife does not have Facebook anymore. She hasn't had Facebook for a long time. She uses my Facebook if she ever needs Facebook. But I'll tell you, she's in the nursery right now. The main reason my wife got off of Facebook, and she was connected with everybody from evangelism and churches all over the country, she had a hard time with all of the comparisons and the pressure she felt as a mom. And also, some of the moms really postured themselves as like they've got it all together. And everything, my ducks are in a row, and some posts were very condescending. My wife would show me some posts, and it's Sunday morning, and some well-meaning mother posts about how I don't understand why mothers can't get their kids to church on time. Our kids are always neatly dressed and pressed and in the pew 15 minutes early, and I don't understand. And she's just like, and I'm looking at it going, yeah, I don't know. I hope that lady was trying, not from our church, from some other church somewhere else. I hope she's trying to be a blessing. But I think it breeds a lot of insecurity. There's a lot of comparison. So finally, my wife just said, it's better if I just don't have this comparison. We just pitched it. It was better for us. Not telling you what to do. The coaching years. There are pitfalls. The counseling years. I mentioned this last time. All of this I'm reviewing, but trying to give a few more insights. The smothering versus permissiveness. Parents in the teenage years and college age years go one of two ways typically. They either smother and the kid grows up never making a decision for himself, or they are permissive and anything goes. That goes along with the passivity, just kind of letting the kid lead the whole situation without much direction. We want to be more the Psalm 127 archers. These arrows are in our hand from God. We're going to aim them at a target and release them when the time is right toward that target. That is not passivity. That is Holy Spirit-led activity. In these 15 to 21 years, we want to make sure that we are not correction averse, or where it does get intimidating. My son is as tall as I am now. He's 6'4.5". So I guess I got a half inch. I got a half inch on him. But it is hard sometimes to look at your son eye to eye and then just correct the way you're supposed to correct and parent with confidence. But I'm called to. I have to. I have to answer to God. And so I cannot be correction averse. And I'll tell you again, going along with the parental guilt, we talked about that earlier. I deal with that more now than ever before, because now I've got a 15-year-old who's 6'4". He's becoming a man, and I see every problem I ever had in him. And he's a great kid. I'm not trying, I think you understand where I'm coming from. I see all of my flaws. I see all of my weakness. I see all the stuff. I wished I could have helped him with this sooner, because, boy, I understand this. And then what can happen is you can tend to be correction averse because of that parental guilt. It's my fault that he did that or said that. So how can I discipline him? It feels hypocritical. It feels like I'm a hypocrite to discipline my kid for the very same thing that I do or have done. Can't do it. I have to stay engaged as a parent and do the correction that needs to be done. And then caving in, remember this, you're still the parent. You still know what's best. Caving into your children only erodes your authority. It erodes your respect. And it's okay to sometimes change your mind. But we tell our kids this: if you come to us on the spot trying to change our plans, and you get all the pressure and all the manipulative levers that the kids love to pull, the answer is absolutely no. I don't care what it was. Let me and Mom go behind closed doors, talk it through. And if we want to change our mind, we'll change our mind. But I'm not just going to cave to pressure. And kids know how to do it. They'll come over to you with all of their friends. Mom, all of my friends' mom says we can do this. You're good with this, right? What am I going to do? Disappoint the kids and their moms? And okay, fine. We've got to help our kids with this. And I'm not saying it's easy. We're still trying to help our kids with this. And just to say, look, you respect our decision-making process. This is how we want it to go down. We're not going to cave in. All right, questions on that portion or any thoughts there? Questions or comments on any of that? The main thing I would say in the pitfalls is just the matter of insecurity. It's all three seasons. As a commander, as a coach, as a counselor, when they're young, middle, or old, the insecurities on parents in parents' hearts that they live with and deal with shackle them from the confidence to parent by faith. We've got to find our security in the Lord and in His Word, and therefore we parent faithfully because God tells me to, not because I'm keeping up with the Joneses, not because I'm right where I need to be. No, I'm parenting the way God's commanded me to. It's the same thing with pastoring, by the way. I rarely feel like that great pastor who's got it all together. But Sunday comes every week, and the message must be delivered every week. And sometimes you feel like you got beat up all week, and sometimes you feel really low. And if I pastored you based on my personal experience, we'd probably be up and down a whole lot more than you guys understand. You don't pastor that way. You pastor based on Bible principle. And God's called me to do this. And this is what His Word says. And you come to me with counsel, and I give you a Bible answer. And it doesn't change because I'm having a hard day or because I'm insecure at the moment or because I'm comparing myself to some other pastor. That can't change. We have to find our security in the Lord, and we do what God's called us to do. That's how you pastor. That's how you parent. We have to find our security in the Lord, and we move forward at His command. Let's do the priorities real quick. Just put all those on there, Carl, if you would. The first column, simplification, investing, and protection. Prioritize keeping it simple. Don't read 100 books. Read one and talk to your spouse about it, or read it together. Read two, maybe. And just do that, and you'll be miles ahead. You don't have to be on everybody's blog. You don't have to watch 100 YouTube videos. Keep it simple. and then see it as a time where you're investing for the later seasons. The more that you engage with your kids early on, that when those relationships are built, that will last. And that's one thing I want to point out. That's maybe the downside of using the word commander, because commanders aren't usually building relationships. So maybe it's not the best word. So I definitely want to stress, even in the commander years, you've got to be nurturing their heart. You've got to be nurturing a relationship and making sure they know that you love them and that you are there for them, not just commanding them, all right? But keep it simple. You can't have 15 charts and all these different things that are complicating your life. Invest, and of course, we are trying to protect them. That's a priority of the first few years, of course. And the next 3, staying focused, cultivating, and preparation. Staying focused, meaning your mission is going to help guide you so that you don't end up chasing every single opportunity known to man for your kids. Insecurity, comparison is going to be the enemy here as well. You have to know your budget. You have to know your standard of living. You have to know your gifts, strengths, weaknesses. You have to know your mission, what is your family supposed to do, and then stay focused on that. And don't feel like you're a bad parent because your kid is not doing everything that somebody else's kid is doing. So stay focused and then cultivate the investment that you've made, the relationships, the love, and all that you're pouring in. A priority in this time is preparation. Then the last 3 priorities, slow down. I'm trying to tap the brake all the time. As we have teenagers now, they're taking off. They're taking flight. They're ready to go. They're not ready to go. They're still in the cooker. Slow down. Have the needed conversation. Slow down. Spend the quality time. Slow down. You do not have to be going somewhere every single night of the week. Slow down and make sure that you're connecting with your teenagers and with your college age, even if it is through technology, if your kid is off in school. But we've got to slow down and make those connections. But having said that, we are in the launch stage. So always be keeping that in view. I remember when one of my friends in college got engaged, her father really struggled with it. And when asked, why are you struggling so much with this engagement? Isn't this a good thing? He said, why can't she just stay here forever? He had a lot of kids, and they all worked in the farm together, and they all had their jobs, they all had their thing they did, their instruments they played, and the house was fun. And he's like, I don't really want any of my kids to get married. I like what we're doing. I like what we have. Oh, but surely you're good with, your grandkids, and well, if they, stay here, but I don't want any of my kids to go. Why would they need to? I have everything for them. I thought, I think something didn't get communicated somewhere along the line. We as parents need to be preparing them to launch. And that might be down the street, or it might be around the world. But we should not have any agenda of keeping everybody home. Our agenda is to let our kids go do what God's called them to do. And then the priority there, partnership. I want to partner with my kids, give them what they need to be able to get there. Any final thoughts on this? And we're out of time. Thoughts on that? I'll give you the final blanks. If you don't have those blanks, without consistent biblical discipline, each of the 3 seasons will be an absolute disaster. Without husband-wife teamwork, your inconsistencies will be exploited. Without God's help, parenting is an impossibility. And then the conclusion, the homework was just parents talk about your disciplinary system together and children surrender to God's working through your parents. Any questions, comments on any of this? Something that you're thinking through, working through in your home? Yes?
I asked a specific question about the coaching stage.
Yeah.
Could you speak into navigating and coaching your kids through more negative emotions like frustration, disappointment, sadness, without being disrespectful, but also without being like weirdly happy like they have been with the dishwasher or something? Like they're allowed to not love that task, so like pull them away from it, but just kind of like a navigation between respect and
That's excellent. How to help your kids develop emotional intelligence, basically. And as you said, it's okay for them to maybe not be thrilled that they have to do the dishes, but they can't have an all-out fit or mope around the whole time, right? Well, we're living that right now in our house, so I can't say that we've got it all of our kids through that. But some of our kids are more emotional than others, and so that's been interesting to see. But there's one kid I'm thinking of particularly, and of mine, and everything's black and white. It's either on or it's off. There's no in between. He's either for you or against you. It's just, and so we're trying to help him with that. That this is good. This passion is great, but let's take the Word of God and help you to see how this is affecting other people. There can be collateral damage. I think that's a whole nother big topic. But with emotional intelligence, what we're dealing with is just their own maturity. So first of all, maybe help them identify what emotions they are feeling, so you can talk about those things, like name these things. Then what do we do when we have this that we're experiencing? How are we going to let this stop us? Is this going to define us now when I'm frustrated, or when I feel betrayed, or I feel whatever it is? That can't define you. It's okay to feel those emotions, but now how do we overcome those? I'm sure my wife would like to talk to you more about that, because this is something we're talking about a lot. Anyone else have a thought on that? Or yes, Bethany? That's excellent. There we go. You can't help how you feel, but you can help how you act. And that sets you up really for life, or one way or the other. Because we're going to deal with grief, disappointment, and if your parent taught you this high, when you have grief or disappointment or whatever, you're allowed to just go to your room and just check out until you feel better. Well, then next thing you know, they're 21 years old, and they think that their boss is going to treat them the same way. Well, I couldn't come to work, boss. Why? Because I was dealing with this emotional grief or sadness or whatever. I was dealing with, you got to come to work, and they have this idea that everyone's going to be mom. It's not going to work that way. Yeah. I'm glad you helped me there. That was great insight. Someone else on the emotional intelligence question? That's a tough one. It is 7:15, so we ran out of time again. But at least we had a couple of good questions in there. I felt so bad last time. We had no time for any questions at all. So thank you for letting me go through that again. I felt like last time I did not really give us time to discuss it, nor did I really hit everything the way I wanted to. And we're going to move on. I think next week, Lord willing, we're going to do communicating with your children. And that is something that you got to be intentional about. Sometimes communicating with your kids can be the hardest thing. Just again, the emotional intelligence or lack thereof. And you've got to be committed to it as a parent. Well, let's pray, and then if your kids are outside, good luck rounding them up. No, they should all be right back here. And I think the FBI class is done. I see them in the hallway. Let's stand and we'll pray and be dismissed.